Hi, I'm Mal from the Money Study, bringing you another episode of our Take 10 Challenge, up to number 53, all about house and general insurances. Before we kick off, there's the disclaimer, all about facts, all about figures and information. It is not advice. Okay, so we own our own house, hopefully. If we don't, we've got some contents, hopefully. And effectively what it boils down to is what happens if something goes wrong. The idea is that we've got enough insurance there to cover us if we obviously get something like a natural disaster. We've only got to pick up the paper at any time in Australia at the moment with floods and fires and all sorts of other issues going on, where obviously severe damage in vast areas across Australia with storms and so forth. So to have your whole house get washed away or burnt down full of all your contents, obviously a bit of a no-brainer if we can afford to have this insurance. The thing is with it, we need to do our homework, because there are certainly difference in prices, that is for sure, and also a lot of big differences in the amount of cover and the type of cover we've got. With the prevalence of floods especially, you will find that not all house policies will indeed cover you for flood. And if they do, the premiums are now going up through the roof. There's some ridiculous premiums that people just couldn't afford. And so they either have to live with it or they indeed have to consider moving, in which case who's going to buy the house if they can't get it insured? So it is very, very important that you find out what the situation is for your house. Check to see what your insurance is actually covering you for, and remembering that flood is different than storm and tempest. So if basically your roof leaks due to a storm, that's okay. But if the water rises up and comes through your door, that's a flood, and you may not be covered for that particular instance. So really make sure you know what you're doing. I say obviously, especially if you think flood is a possibility. Luckily, I live on a hill. And then it comes down to the amount of cover. And obviously with the costs of building materials that have gone through the roof of late, you may find that your estimations on what it would cost to rebuild is actually it's just nowhere near totally insufficient compared to what it would cost you these days. My builder just recently was telling me that a lot of these materials have gone up not by 2 or 3%, but in some cases 40%. And that is going to make one big difference if you're trying to rebuild a home. That is for sure. So make sure, go and get a bit of a quote from someone, talk to a builder or somebody to get an estimation. Just don't take a punt on what it would actually do to rebuild. And then, of course, the same with all of your contents. It comes down to literally what is the replacement value of all of those things. And you'd be surprised on what it would when you actually do a bit of an audit. Run around your house with your iPad and take a note, take photos of all, especially items that would be more expensive. Keep a record, do a tally to sort of estimate what it would cost you to replace your contents as well. So review your policy every time you do it. Update it, review it, make sure that you've actually told them the things like that you've had deadlocks put on, you've got locks on the windows, that perhaps your roof has changed to a different type. You may have, it just comes down to anything that you do that makes your house more secure. Generally speaking, you can actually get a discount then on the cost of your premiums. So yeah, have a look, see what read the fine print. Read the fine print on your home insurance just to see what you're actually covered for at the moment. Is it appropriate? Because what we don't want to do, of course, is to come to make a claim and then there is a particular issue that says your house is X, but it actually is Y. In which case then they could have all sorts of issues where even a payment may not be made because of the information was indeed inaccurate. So please get it up to date, make sure it's appropriate and review it on a regular basis. And of course I say don't just keep on going with the same company. if without doing your homework to see what else is available. But then by the same token, don't just change companies because the premium is cheaper. Make sure you'll know you're paying for the same sort of policy, that all the fine print is exactly the same. If you've ever had dealings with your insurance company and you find them to be quick, easy to deal with, they didn't question it, but paid through, then perhaps your extra premium that you're paying may indeed be appropriate, because literally you're going to get looked after when you do indeed need to make a claim. Of course, there are heaps of other types of insurances. Car insurance is probably the next most popular insurance after our house insurance and contents there. You can get comprehensive insurance, which basically is, if your car, you run it off the road and you write it off, your car is replaced. But these, what is it actually worth for you to replace it? If you've got a bit of an old bomb, would it cost you more in insurance over a few years than it is to insure it? But then, of course, what happens if your car, you're not so much worried about your own car, but what happens if it hit a Mercedes or ploughed through the front of a very expensive house or did some other sort of structural damage to something that was indeed quite expensive? So making sure you've got some sort of third-party insurance to cover at least the expenses. There's a third-party fire and theft, meaning that it's insured for whatever it damages. It's actually insured if it's been stolen, but it's not insured if it's in an accident. But it is covering the costs of other things. Now, of course, you get your third-party personal damage that comes with your registration, and that's obviously can be very expensive. So we need to keep our car insured to ensure we've got that third-party insurance that comes with that. Consumer credit insurance means that basically you can't make payments if you're sick or you've lost your job. So it's just really a bit of making sure that your things that you're paying for there, that if you can't make the payments on your credit cards and on loans and these sorts of things, that you've got this insurance to do it. Really, it comes down to perhaps there are better ways to do this, is regarded as income protection insurance, which we'll certainly talk about in future sessions there. We've already sort of talked about contents insurance, but obviously if you don't own your own home and you're renting, then yes, you just might need a contents insurance so that you're covering your TV and all the things from theft, from fire, and so forth. A lot of contents insurance will actually also cover you for things outside of the home, so your contents are actually insured Australia-wide. And this is where it comes down to these, like in the next one there, where people insure their phone and their iPad and insure their laptop and so forth as a separate item. Could they indeed just literally be bundled in with part of your contents insurance? So this is where it's important to understand what your contents insurance actually covers you for. So does it cover you just the contents of your house? Does it cover mobile items, things that you're carting around with you? It's a case of not all insurance policies are exactly the same. Don't just literally go on premium price. You've got to look at actually what you're covering for. But if you may find that yes, if you've got a basic contents insurance which does what you need, by adding to it or going to it even to a different company for things like your phone and so forth, that could work out cheaper depending on the policies there. Remembering that a contents insurance, that a lot of these things, unless you've specified something, like just imagine you've got a very expensive piece of artwork, then please take photos of it, get a valuation done and so forth. Same as jewellery and these sorts of things, just take photos. But generally speaking, a lot of the contents policies, if you've got an expensive item, it would normally need to be listed. For instance, I know for the fact that bicycles, I'm a keen cyclist, and under the rules of my contents insurance, yes, I was covered for cycling, But effectively, anything more than $500 to $1,000, generally speaking, they think that's okay to replace a bike. But of course, in my case, my bike's probably worth more than my car. In which case, yeah, I had to specify what the brand was, what it's worth, and so forth. So anything that's a little bit, different, and there's a reason it's got a higher value. Not necessarily because it's sentimental value, but something that's does have a higher intrinsic value there. Please take a photo of it, get it valued. Keep a copy of the valuation, perhaps off-site, fireproof safe, and those sort of things to keep that information available to you. Perhaps you can put it, store it on on the cloud or something like that to keep that information safe from damage in your own home. Pet insurance. Look, some people just scoff at that. Other people will say it's a must. Obviously, it always just comes down to, obviously the type of animal that we've got. A bit different if you've got a goldfish, I suppose, compared to a purebred dog or something like that. But of course, it always just comes down to what is this costing us compared to what would we be prepared to spend, what can we able to spend to keep our animals and so forth healthy. Because vets these days can indeed be hellishly expensive, and for some very odd reason, animals seem to get sick on the weekend, especially on Sundays, which will then obviously push up the cost of visiting your vet. Travel insurance, I love this one, and probably because I've had to use it, and I've had to use it too many times, unfortunately. But yeah, having lost our luggage for 6 days in Canada, having no clothes, being able to contact the insurance company to know that they just say, look, go out and buy what you need. It'll be, we'll replace you the money for doing that. So it just gives you that sort of protection. And of course, a lot of these travel insurances will cover you for, hospital things, refund of fares and overnight accommodation if there's delays, as I say, lost luggage and so forth. Travel insurance really covers a great range of things. Again, making sure that your travel insurance is appropriate for the sort of travel you're going to be doing, and for the situation things that you want to cover yourself for. Probably a little bit different if you're just travelling around Australia in your car doing a road trip compared to flying into some remote region of Africa or something like that. Now, so there are other types of insurances which really the same thing always just applies in any of insurance, the things that you want to insure. Is it appropriate? Read the fine print. What are the rules, regulations? Are there any exclusions? Just to really understand, are you indeed getting value for money? Insurance is one of those things that we don't like paying, and here we are actually paying for something that we hope we never have to use, which is probably a very unusual situation. But anyway, have a think, go through it, use your sometimes if you've got a few spare minutes, just dig out all of your insurance policies, go through them one at a time, and use that time effectively to work out, could you save money, or perhaps you should need to spend more money to protect yourself better. Talk again on another session.